McCarthy Insurance Group, serving the community for over 70 years. For home, farm, motor, life, health and business insurance, log on to mig.ie or free phone 1800 50 11 11. Probably your best call in 2024. Charles McCarthy Insurance is trading as McCarthy Insurance Group, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Real people, real opinions, real talk radio. The multi-award-winning Niall Boylan Show.
Paul Murphy. Good old Paul, huh? He's always good to talk about. But we're not going to talk about Paul Murphy per se, but I'm reading from the Irish Times. And it says Socialist TD Paul Murphy had posted on social media about protests at his home by what he described as elements of the political far right. Mr. Murphy posted a picture of 11 people outside his home in Tallaght in Dublin, most of whom had their faces obscured or were wearing hoods. Not very brave, lads. Mr. Murphy said, far-right protesting outside our home right now. We're literally preparing to give our newborn baby a bath. And the message was posted at 7:46 on Monday night. Demonstrating outside the politicians' homes has become a tactic by protest groups in recent years. Among those who have been targeted in the past are Leo Varadkar, Minister for Justice Simon Harris, and in September 2021, a small number of protesters gathered outside Mr. Varadkar's home in the south inner city in Dublin. Now, I actually do remember that protest, and they started shouting really horrendous things, completely uncalled for. Anyway, the Gardaí attended the incident in Dublin 8, where it is understood that a number of anti-vaccine demonstrators had gathered for about an hour. This was during, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. And protesters gathered outside the County Wicklow home of Mr. Harris on a number of occasions in early 2019, when he and his wife were taking care of their newborn baby. And the protests sparked criticism from Leo Varadkar at the time, who said it was disgusting. The self-styled anti-eviction flying column said it would repeat such protests. On another occasion, according to the Irish Times, members of the group that call itself the Fingal Battalion Direct Action Group, I wonder where they get these names, they're wonderful names, aren't they, were monitored outside Mr. Harris's home by the Gardaí before dispersing. Now, the Social Democrats TD Catherine Murphy has suggested the government should consider legislation that could be used for incidents like this, but the Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment, Simon Coveney, had previously said it would be very difficult to bring in a law to prevent protests from taking place outside the homes of politicians because, under the Constitution of Ireland, you are in a public place. Once you don't step over their front garden, you're in a public place. You're quite entitled to do it, as long as you don't become a nuisance, as long as you don't impede other people's path to go about their daily business, and as long as you're not violent and it's peaceful. You're quite entitled to do it. That doesn't make it morally right, but does it? And I've always been, even though I'm all for protests, and I think it's a great idea to get things done, I don't know about protesting outside politicians' homes, whether that's the right thing to do or not. But I did see one comment online that struck me. And I want to read this out to you. It says, the decisions made by politicians directly affect what happens in my home, the cost of my energy, my income, my ability to provide, and my personal well-being. So I see no reason why I should not take my protests outside their homes to affect their personal lives, because if I go to the Dáil, they'll just ignore me. So I do understand, but is it wrong to make it personal? Because that's what you're doing. Like, if you don't like what Niall Boylan says on the radio, you're quite entitled to write into my boss. If I break the codes conduct by the Broadcasting Authority, you're quite entitled to write to them as well. But that's your route. But you don't go outside my home. And I know during the COVID pandemic, there were people outside Pat Kenny's home. That's not the way you deal with it. I didn't agree with what Pat Kenny was saying on the air at the time, but I didn't protest outside his home. Mind you, it's illegal for me to protest because I'm on radio. But anyway, the question is it right? Do you see anything wrong with it? Let me know what you think. The number is 087 188 0008. That's 087 188 0008. Do you see anything wrong with protesting outside politicians' homes? Let me go to Melissa. Melissa, you're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio. How you doing, Melissa?
Good evening.
Now, you're a former local independent councillor as well.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Have you ever had this experience? Have you ever had this experience yourself?
I have had serious experience, actually, of gatherings outside my home. Not protesters, but gangs of harassment. Unfortunately, they stepped over the boundary when like Paul
Right.
inside his house. And I have to say, first and foremost, protesting, and I am, and I have been out protesting over 4 years now,
Yeah.
and right back to the water,
Hmm.
all the
Which is your
water protest.
constitutional right. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and I believe that we all have that right once it's done in a non-threatening manner.
See, here's where the problem
I
lies. According to the
personally have
Constitution, there's no clause in the Constitution. The Constitution basically says that you have the right to peaceful assembly. And
Yes.
once you're in a public place and you don't impede the others of going about their lawful business, you're not doing anything illegal. So standing outside
Well, I
your
think
house, my house,
I have had it
Mm.
in a very harassing way. My property has been damaged.
well, that's
been knocked
well, well,
unconscious.
well, that's criminal
I
damage,
was
and they should be
pulled
arrested.
out
Yes.
of my car. This particular, what we're speaking of, obviously, of Paul Murphy, he was very safe in his house. They didn't cross his barriers. He made a statement that his neighbours were barricaded into his home. I do believe it was an overuse of language. I do believe it was misinformation. I don't believe his neighbours were barricaded into their
Well,
home.
I don't know whether they were or they
and
weren't,
that
but
they reacted.
okay.
Well, I just saw the video, like I
Mm.
suppose everybody else. And
But is it not? Is it not? Look, I don't know whether you're a fan of Paul Murphy's politics or not a fan of Paul Murphy's politics.
exactly.
But here's the thing: is
I
it,
didn't
is it
like
not,
people
it's
outside my
intimidating,
home
isn't it?
threatening me and my. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I personally have protested, quite a number of times over the last 9 years all around the country, but we did it in a different fashion.
Mm.
That's just me personally and my moral standing, because maybe of what I went through myself of people outside my home. And it wasn't even on politics. They just decided the day I was elected and they didn't want me
Okay, right.
in their area.
Well, I assume
being
the people
an
who
elected
voted you wanted you, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, the others
Well, I
didn't.
topped the polls at the time, but I did leave.
And when, by the way, when
particular
was that, Melissa? When
and then
did?
it changed. 2016, I was elected and topped the poll with Sinn Féin.
Okay, and was that around the time of the
that
water?
time-
That was around the time of the water charges, wasn't
It
it?
was,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
And there was a big split there at that time
of
of,
course.
like, people didn't want political people involved.
Yeah.
So it got very, very nasty for me at that time. And they were outside my home and they did gather outside my home. And unfortunately, I was physically assaulted and
Well,
my
that's despicable.
home was damaged. And
Yeah.
it was despicable. So I personally would never do that to anyone else. Morally,
But yeah,
I
but
was
you are.
very
But
different.
on one hand, you're saying you would never do that, and on the other hand, you're kind of defending the people who stood outside Paul Murphy's home the other
I'm
night.
defending because they stood out in a public place and didn't do any damage.
But if they stood outside your house, let's say at the time,
Would
as
have
long as,
to.
if they, yeah,
but
but,
unfortunately, they were vicious.
okay,
and
well that's different.
attacking
No,
and-
well, hang on.
But I was-
If they're vicious,
But I
no, I
was
know.
an elected representative at that time.
Yeah, but I want to clarify something. There's a difference between protesting outside someone's home and behaving like animals outside somebody's home.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I
and one
agree.
is illegal and one is not.
Yes.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, the people who were outside Paul Murphy's home, I'm assuming they did nothing illegal, right? So they
I
can't,
don't believe they did.
no, so they can't be arrested, right? But here's the thing:
Exactly.
isn't it morally wrong? It doesn't have to be illegal just to be wrong. I mean, the man is in
Yes,
there with
we
his
talk
wife,
about
who's
the moral aspect.
yeah, look, his wife is not a politician. His baby is not a politician. They're not making decisions. You know what I mean? So, when you have
I
your
suppose
private time,
maybe
it's
when
wrong.
He came out publicly. I know publicly. And in fairness, do you see any other politician going out talking about their baby's gender and putting up all over the internet?
But that's neither
just
here nor
after
but
the
that's
birth?
well. Look, if you don't agree with him,
I think when you bring the public into your family, like to me, I would have always protected my family
Yes,
as a
of course,
politician,
yeah.
as a public
as
representative.
I did on the radio, I never mentioned my children on their names or anything like that on the radio.
Your family and your job separate. He did not do that. I think in a way,
But the response to that would be, okay, he did. There was a bit of press around him having the baby and the gender of the baby and all that kind of carry on. Right? And there was stuff on Twitter and everything. Respond to him on Twitter. Call him a gobshite if you want to call him a gobshite, or stand outside the doll. But I'm just saying, outside his home, his family home. I just don't see morally how that's right.
Well, I didn't.
No.
I wouldn't do it to anybody else.
Well,
And
then.
that's just my personal opinion because,
But that's what I want, your personal opinion.
and my personal opinion as someone that was an elected person, I didn't, the Gardaí and the press didn't run around us.
Okay, let me ask you a question, Melissa. Let's say a group of people who are friends of yours turn around and say, for example, I'm only giving an example, Minister Norma Foley, the Minister for Education, they're bringing in a new curriculum this year with the sex education, and they don't like it, okay? We're going to protest outside our home. Are you coming, Melissa, right? So you'll say, no, I don't agree with that. But would you say to them, listen, I don't think that's a good idea for you to do that?
I have said it publicly. I've said personally, I will never stand outside someone's home.
Well, then condemn the people who did it the other night then.
But they're out in the public, so they have that right to do so, and they didn't do any harm.
But
you
you're
made it out worse than what it was.
But hang on, but you're singing from both sides of the hymn
No,
sheets.
I'm not really.
You're telling me it's wrong. You were telling me that you would advise people not to do it. You're telling me you wouldn't do it. But then you're defending. But then you're defending the people who did it outside his house, saying they didn't do anything wrong.
Because legally,
I know.
they had not done anything wrong.
I know, and if I go and protest outside your home tonight, legally, I'm not doing anything wrong either.
Exactly.
But then, why would
Once you're not causing harm and upset,
but
the difference was
okay? So if they
people
were
outside my home did.
okay, if those protesters were on the air now, would you say to them, "Don't do that again"?
I have said to these people that I will not go outside somebody's home, and because of what was done to myself.
Will you condemn it? Do you condemn it? Do you condemn protesting, even peacefully? Do you condemn protesting outside politicians' homes?
I can never condemn protesting peacefully in public places. I will never condemn protesting.
But you just said a few minutes ago to me you wouldn't do it and it's morally wrong.
I said personally, I would not stand outside someone's home because it was done to me, but it was done in a very vicious way.
And again, I say to you, that's different. I say to you, that's different because if somebody does that, there are other laws like public order laws involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, when it's done peacefully, I will not condemn those protesters because they did it peacefully and it is their right to do so.
Okay, stay there, Melissa, just for a second. Let me go to Jason. Jason, I'm listening to what Melissa says. She's a former councillor. She's had it done to her, mind you, in a much more aggressive fashion. People get a bit frustrated sometimes, Jason, and they feel they have no option but to protest outside their home.
Good evening, Niall.
Good evening.
No, I don't believe we should be allowed. It's where their families are. What you think of their policies? That's different.
Do nothing. Yeah.
Sorry, hang on, John. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
No, I'm not saying that. And what's this whole idea of covering their faces? If it's illegal and it's a peaceful protest, why cover your face? I protested against the fuel. I didn't cover my face up. We didn't cover our face up. We all had our faces out there.
Yeah, I'm always dubious of people covering their faces up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what's that all about? I mean, if there's nothing wrong in what they're doing, let people see what they're doing. There's nothing to hide.
I don't understand why they covered their faces. Or was it? The only people I know covering their faces at protests are people before profit, actually.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Leave their families out with this. The kids didn't ask for any of this. The kids didn't ask for their parents to be politicians. You know that way.
I mean, if you want to protest against an individual politician, you go either to the Dáil or go to a public engagement they have.
Yeah, I go to a constituency office. You know where they hold our clinics.
Yeah.
Do they even still do that? Do they? They still hold clinics? Do they?
Most of them do. Yeah.
Do they? Yeah. Well, then you go there. You stand outside there with a placard. You go to where he walks. If he's opening up a bloody supermarket or a tin can in the middle of the street, you go and you stand beside that. But you leave their families out of it, honestly.
Yeah, but Melissa's saying they weren't. Well, hang on. Melissa said they're not doing anything illegal. They were peaceful.
How intimidated did Melissa feel when they were outside?
Sorry, Melissa.
Yeah, but it only takes one gobshite. Sorry, Melissa.
I was being attacked.
No, Melissa, it only takes one gobshite to start, and the rest of them will follow.
Agree.
And you know that. Yeah, well then, you put an exclusion zone around their houses and leave their houses out of this. You know that way. It only takes one to start off, and you know how intimidated you felt when you were at your home. Imagine you're there with a young child. Yeah, so no. Let's go after them in the office. Go after them on the street. Follow them up and down the street if you want. Follow the cars around once they leave their home, but not outside the home. Leave their families out of it.
Simon Coveney did talk about exclusion zones before. This was in relation to the abortion hospitals or GP services performing abortions or terminations. And it's really difficult to do exclusion zones because the Constitution, it would go against the Constitution of the land, Jason. So I don't think we're ever going to see exclusion zones anywhere when it comes to protesting, because it would be difficult to bring in that kind of legislation to say you can protest anywhere in the country, but not in a mile around this house or a mile around that house. Or you just,
I know what you're saying. Yeah, it would be really hard to do. But I mean, how else do you do it? Well, then.
No, they can't, Melissa.
Well, then there's no other way.
But Melissa, you are confusing me. I'm going to have to be honest with you. Because, Melissa, you are condemning it, but you are then, on the other hand, saying those people outside Paul Murphy's home are doing nothing wrong.
I'm condemning what was done to me.
No, I'm not talking about, forget about you for the moment, Melissa, with the greatest respect. I'm saying you're condemning it, but you're not condemning the ones that were outside Paul Murphy's house.
No, because they didn't cause any harm.
So then you're not condemning it.
I'm not condemning it in public when they're not causing harm. Absolutely not. I morally, personally, would not stand and protest outside someone's house. But that's me personally.
And why? Because you think it's wrong. So if you think it's wrong, I just don't understand you, Melissa. No, I don't understand you, Melissa. If you morally think it's wrong...
It's not in my moral standing to attack someone's home.
Okay, that's fine. So you morally think it's wrong. So then why do you think...
Morally, the home is supposed to be your safe place.
Absolutely, it's sacrosanct. Yeah, but if you're condemning it on a moral ground and you're saying it's wrong, why are you not condemning them?
The Republican didn't cause... I can't condemn them standing in a public place.
You're contradicting yourself.
Do any harm.
But you're contradicting yourself.
Doing harm.
But you're contradicting yourself. You're telling me you believe it's morally wrong, but you won't condemn people who do it.
No, I personally wouldn't do it, I said. But I'm not going to condemn the people out on a public road protesting. Ever. And they were on a public road. He put out misinformation that his neighbours were barricaded.
Well, I don't know about his neighbours, and personally speaking, I don't really care. I don't know about his neighbours, whether they were or they weren't barricaded. I'm only concerned with the idea and the principle behind protesting outside somebody's home in the first place. Stay there, Jason. Let me just go to our good friend John O'D. I don't even have to ask. John, you're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio. How you doing, John?
I'm very good, and yourself?
Good, John. Now, you heard Jason. It's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. Now, in fairness, Melissa does say it's wrong, but she can't condemn the people who did it.
Well, look, she's kind of a bit... I agree with some of her stuff, and she's making sense. Then she kind of goes off in a different direction, because, look, what she's actually saying is that morally she can't square that. She wouldn't do it herself, but she's allowing other people that have no problem doing it to go ahead and do it, but she wouldn't do it herself. And when we had the water campaign, no, yeah, exactly. Yeah. When we started the water campaign, this is where this all kicked off, and we had a big crowd. There must have been 300 or 400 people inside in the hall, and I put down a motion that we go after the local councillors who called us scumbags, hooligans, and everything under the sun. That we would target their homes, including the Lord Mayor of Cork at the time. And before I said, I prefaced it first, Niall, that if anybody, we put it to the floor, and if the board wins that, yes, we will do that, that those people that don't want to get involved in it and don't agree with that, that obviously, look, I mean, they won't be asked to partake in that in any way whatsoever. Now, the board went, and the board won on the night, so we picked a different councillors home, including the Lord Mayor, right? Now, as you know, when it came to the whole pro-life thing, I've been outside Micheál Martin's house when he was 2 years, every second or third or fourth or fifth week, right? And I make no apology for that. I chased them through the streets of Cork, right? I've been outside other politicians. And the whole idea is that you must ask yourself this. Why are people only doing this now? How come they didn't do it in the 70s? They didn't do it in the 80s? I mean, they're doing it now because people feel betrayed. And when you have a cohort of people that are worried about their families and about their areas, and when they come out in peaceful protest, and they are then called not just far-right, extreme far-right by certain politicians, and then when those same people turn up outside their doors, they have a problem.
Okay,
Okay,
he makes a fair point, Jason. I'm not agreeing with John 100%. I personally don't believe, like Melissa, it's right to protest outside family homes, people's family homes. But he does make a fair point that, you know, nothing really gets done unless you get attention. And I suppose John has protested outside their homes, peacefully, can I point out.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I condemn anyone
and on his own by time, too.
I condemn that completely.
Whose homes have you protested outside, John? Well, Micheál Martin's, obviously, because you're in Cork. Who else?
The Lord Mayor, under the Labour Lord Mayor when she was in the mayoralty in Cork, and we've been on Jerry Butterm's house, Hugh Coveney's house. I mean, when we landed there was about half a dozen guards arrived across straight away. But yet the good people of Carrigaline couldn't get a guard for love nor money.
So I mean, and the thing about it is, Jason, as much as I don't agree with John and I don't condone what he does and what others do, it does get attention, and particularly in the water protests, it got things done.
Yeah, it did, Noel. I'm not saying it didn't. I'm just, how do the kids feel in their house when a crowd gathers outside the house? Honestly, just put yourself. But now, come on, John. We're adults here, yeah. But you have a 10 and 11-year-old little girl and a boy in a house, and there's 14, 15 blokes standing outside with their faces all covered, chanting their daddy's name or their mum's name.
Well, number one.
Never mind.
Number one, they shouldn't have their faces covered. They shouldn't have their faces covered.
We all know they do. We all know these cowards
I never covered my face ever.
I know you didn't, John. I'm listening to you for years, and I agree with a hell of a lot of stuff what you do. I really do. But I just don't believe we should be allowed. I've kids, and I'd hate to think how they feel inside their house if a gang turned up outside and just start chanting their father's name. Yeah, and we all know it gets
John, sorry,
That's
Jason.
where I'm coming from, Noel.
Yeah, okay, Jason. John, you remember during the towards the end of COVID-19, people started protesting outside Leo Varadkar's home. And they didn't just protest. They started shouting homophobic slurs and all sorts of carry on. It got ridiculous.
If I was there that day, I would have stopped them in their tracks. And if other people like me that don't believe in that kind of stuff.
When the gang gets going, John, you know yourself, when the gang gets going, it's hard to stop them. When they start chanting, it only takes one or two bloody gobshites to start chanting. And the crowd
but to be honest, I mean, all the protests now, they were there and everything over, all this people coming into East Wall and everywhere there, they were all peaceful protests. Like, nobody attacked the guards, nobody broke the windows or anything.
Now, did you hear some of the stuff they were shouting at them poor fuckers in the hotel?
Yeah, but you see, the trouble is, again, you're missing the point. People are exasperated.
Sometimes words can do a hell of a lot of damage as well.
Yeah, but you see, you must ask people, like the people, those people didn't want to be out there like a minute at night and going around doing this stuff. They were bloody well driven to it, simple as that. Because you're on about the family. Let me finish this point. You're on about the families, right, of politicians, right? But those same politicians, with their families, like, I mean, they take decisions or not take decisions on a daily basis that affect the lives of mothers, fathers, and children.
And you know, and Jason, that's a fair point. And I read out this comment that I saw on social media earlier on. I'll read it out again, okay, because I think it's very relevant. And the comment says, the decisions made by politicians directly affect what happens in my home, the cost of my energy, my income, my ability to provide, and my personal well-being. So I see no reason why I don't take my protest outside their homes to affect their personal lives.
Because their kids don't make them decisions. And then people also have to face them bills as well. They don't not have to pay them bills. Some of them are well paid.
Do you think Leo Varadkar's worried about his electricity bill?
But they're not all on that level either, though, Niall, okay? We can't cast them all in with the one. Okay, they're not all on that
level. Most of them are any TD. Nearly every TD is on over €80,000.
As you like to tell us, they're not all the same. I believe they're all bloody corrupt, but we're not allowed to say that because not everybody is like that. There is some hard working in there that don't take this over, and you know that. I just don't believe that kids. I'm just thinking of that poor flecking kids in the houses there with a gang outside, rather than shouting their father's name or their mother's name, and we all know how vicious you can get. That's all I'm thinking of. Take your protest to the streets. Take your protest to the streets. When they're running these big conferences and this, that, and the other, block them. Go and block when these second dignitaries are coming into the airports. Block them people. Block the people who matters when the news crews are around. Don't go
that's the problem, Niall. He's right there, but the problem is that not enough of people doing it, and then if people do that, there'll be others cribbing that say that. You see,
John, you never do. Nobody. Sorry, John, we were trying to
well, hang on, both of you, you know, and I'm going to agree with both of you here, right? Because I think Jason and John, the Irish people, I spoke to Jane about this before we started the show tonight. What happened to the Irish people? The Irish people, we were great for protesting. We were great for standing up for our rights. The water charges was the last time it happened, really, with 100,000 people on O'Connell Street. Yeah. But we seem to have lost, since COVID-19 started, we seem to have lost the gusto, so to speak, to stand up.
Niall, it was even before that we lost the gusto, Niall. I mean, when anybody protests, now the first thing the media do is turn you against the people that are protesting. I mean, it happens everywhere. England's rife with it as well, and it's starting to creep in over here. We were vilified when we were protesting for the diesel.
Absolutely, but the one thing I will say about England and the media in England, at least the media in England, you have a level of balance. So, for example, you have the BBC, which would be far left now at this stage, right? But you've also got Talk TV, you've got Talk Radio, UK Talk Radio, you've got GB News, Sky News somewhere in the middle. So at least there's a choice.
Yeah, no, I'm out there all the time. I listen to quite a lot of it. I listen to LBC quite a lot, and then I listen to that GB as well when I'm out there.
I like Talk TV, actually. Talk TV is quite good.
But, you do get two different. One is literally batting for one side, and one is batting for the other.
Yeah, but we don't have that here.
Yeah. We don't have it over here. Oh, God, no, we don't.
No.
Our interviewers are given a list of questions and the answers of what they're going to ask. So I know how all that works. But that's what's wrong in this country. We're fed a certain narrative, and people either believe it, and they always go back to the same thing. They say everybody knows a guard, everybody knows a nurse, everybody knows a teacher in this country. And they just don't protest. That's just, we've just lost the will for something.
Okay, well, hang on just for 2 seconds. Let me go to Rob as well. Rob O'Brien. How you doing, Rob?
Evening, Niall. How are you?
Good, Rob. Nice to talk to you. Rob, what do you want to say?
And you, Niall, as always. Right. Going to people's houses to protest. So, almost 2 years ago there now, Leo Varadkar's house was targeted.
Mm-hmm.
As you remember. And there was an awful furore over it. Now, when this crowd turned up, it wasn't about vaccines or anything like that when they got there. It turned into screaming in that he was a paedophile, kiddie fiddler, all this
homosexual,
stuff.
Yes. There was homophobic remarks and horrible things said. Horrible things said.
Luckily enough, Leo Varadkar and his partner weren't in. But can you imagine just being sitting in there and that scream? Can you imagine having to open your hall door if you had to go out on business?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, Rob. The Garda have a duty. And if people start doing that kind of stuff, well, then it's not a peaceful protest and it's illegal. And that's the law. And they should be, anybody doing that should be arrested. You're quite entitled to stand out in the street with your placard in your hand and walk up and down. By the way, the law says you must keep moving. You're not allowed to stand in one spot. Yeah. Because otherwise you're blocking the pavement.
Standing in the street, as one of the lads are on there talking about there and protest out in the streets. That was done during the water protests when your woman, Joan Borton, she was a government minister.
Mm-hmm.
She had she was with our secretary, and the two women were in the ministerial car up in Tala, a business or a government business thing, and they were hemmed in by Paul Murphy and his mob.
Well, when you say his mob, Paul Murphy and other protesters, yes, that's right. But they weren't. But hang on. But that was But with the greatest respect, Rob, that wasn't her home. She was on ministerial duty at the time.
Yeah, but they blocked her car from getting...
Yeah, but that's... Well, okay, as much as I might not agree with it, it's not the same as being outside somebody's house.
Yeah, but they couldn't even go and use their toilet or anything. It was absolutely disgraceful. And Paul Murphy is standing there saying, will we let the car move? Will we let them go on, or will we keep them here?
Okay, but and I understand, and I know George Hook made a point of calling him a hypocrite over that, but it's not the same thing. If you want to go and when Paul Murphy is driving into work or he's coming out of government buildings and you want to block his path at a protest, fine, do that if that's what you feel you need to do. Or Leo Varadkar's or Simon Coveney's or whoever. But going outside their home, I mean, your home is sacrosanct, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely, it's out of bounds.
It's the one place that you should feel safe in.
No matter what the government business is. It's completely...
If somebody came outside my door, I wouldn't mind.
Well, hold on, what are you saying, John?
I said if somebody that was diametrically opposed to me, what I'm doing, and they turned up outside my door, as long as they didn't do what happened to that lady was on force, come into my property, berate me, assault me physically, do criminal damage to my property, they could stay outside there all day long and walk up and down. I've no problem with someone picketing my home.
You're saying that you're saying that now.
But you see, the thing is, I'm not a legislator, right? the reason the people that homes are targeted, right, they are the legislators. They can make laws that will affect people's lives on a daily basis or not make those laws. And Micheál Martin would love now on Baraka. If we all went up on Saturday, 100,000 of us now, outside an empty hall where there's nobody there, he'd love that. Or we march up and down the bloody street. But the minute you turn up outside their door, and even Drew Harris has said it, both the exclusion zones for the abortion and the stuff outside the politicians, as long as there's no public order, there's no crime being committed.
And I've said this already, there may be no crime being committed. But is it right, John? That's the question I'm asking today. I'm not asking, is it illegal? I know it's not illegal.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, Rob.
Can I ask John a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can I ask John a question? Yeah, they can protest outside the house and what have you, as you say, John, and no crimes being committed. But what happens when his partner's there with his family or her family or wherever, and you have young kids and screeching the man's name? That's okay.
I said, what about the man I spoke to today? Right?
Now answer the question he's just asked you, would you?
No, I'm answering it. And if you bear with me a second, this man, right, was walking on the roads in Cork. Right? He's from Offaly above, right? He had a child that has cancer at the moment and who's also suffers from Down syndrome, right? And there was an ambulance supposed to come to bring him up to Dublin to the Children's Hospital. He got a phone call saying, right, after 2 hours, could they ever make their own way up there, right? No. And then would you wonder why that man would protest outside the politician's home?
John, I can see all the reasons why you should. And, you know, in this country, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, people's lives have been turned upside down. I was only talking about electricity to my friend today, at the cost of electricity, right? You know, it's costing about, personally me, about 10, 15 quid a day, maybe a bit more, right? That's nearly $2,000 every 3 months. You know, that's like a mortgage. And, you know, and I can remember when that same bill was only 400 quid for 3 months, going back about 5 or 6 years ago. And people are crippled, absolutely crippled, by the decisions being made by politicians, by the decisions being made globally. We're all being crippled. We understand all the reasons why you'd want to do it. But that still doesn't give you a reason to do it. There are other ways to protest. You know, there are other ways.
As I said, it's back to what the first meeting we had in the board in the hall, right? It's up to people. If some people are uncomfortable doing it, like some of my friends in pro-life, they're like, what
who's
I do
comfortable doing it?
Micheál Martin, right? You see, they don't feel comfortable doing it.
Right? I don't agree with Paul Murphy and any of his policies. I look at Paul Murphy's Twitter account, and I've spoken to Paul on the air, and he's a nice guy. I've spoken to him on the air. I don't agree with everything he says, but he's a nice enough kind of fella, right? And you know, but it still wouldn't take me. I still wouldn't feel comfortable standing outside the man's home. It's just not right.
Not everyone will protest. Not everyone will stand outside the politician's home. But you must allow those people that have the balls to do it to go ahead.
I don't think it's something to do with balls. Who feels comfortable doing it?
It is
you
because,
do.
I mean, the girls are going to turn up and everything.
Oh,
and
that's exciting.
Story, but like, that doesn't bother me because I know my rights and the girls just have to go away. Like, I give them a little lecture and off they go, you know.
See, Rob, John has done it loads of times.
Oh, yeah, really happy to do it, yeah.
but I do. And by the way, Rob, I understand the frustrations of people. And I think it's wrong, by the way, of the media to paint everybody who has an issue as some sort of right-wing lunatic, because that's not the case, right?
They're not right-wing or far-right. That's nonsense.
Yes, of course it is.
Now, but the danger is, Niall, there's a danger here, and John, the danger is there's always somebody in the crowd who'll want to take this a
step further.
You know, a step further, and that means violence or stuff like that, or whatever.
But that can happen in a constituency clinic. It can happen if someone is turning up a politician cutting a ribbon in a shopping centre. That can happen anywhere, like.
But the thing about it is, when you go to a politician's home, like for example, Paul Murphy's house the other night. Like, who's to say? Imagine if Paul Murphy wasn't even there. Let's say he was gone out for a drink with one of his mates or something. I don't know. Or let's say he was gone somewhere in an engagement, and only his wife and his child was there. What purpose would that serve? Well, apart from terrorising his wife and child.
Number one, the people turned up. Like, how they're supposed to know whether he's there or not. And
isn't that the whole point? Why would you turn up outside someone's house if you don't even know they're there?
This same man went along, and ordinary decent Dublin people, right? I mean, he went out and he called them not just far right, but extreme far right. And then he has a problem when the same people turn up outside his door.
Got to take a break. The number is 087 188 0008. That's 087 188 0008. Do you think it's... look, people keep saying, Niall, it's not illegal. I know it's not illegal. I'm well aware of that. But is it right? You know, and I understand the frustrations of people. I understand the frustrations of everybody listening. Our lives have been turned upside down. The cost of living crisis is killing us. Killing us. I went out and grabbed a few bits and pieces today. It wasn't even much, and it was like 30 quid or something. That would have cost 15 quid going back 5 or 6 years ago, just for small, bag of potatoes, a couple of bits and pieces. It's bonkers what everything is costing. And all of this is because of decisions being made by politicians, not just here, but globally. Green policies is adding tax onto everything. The government are not willing to, to reduce the VAT to help us along the way. We're crippled putting petrol or diesel into our cars. We're crippled heating our homes. We're crippled powering a light in our homes. These things we should get very cheap because we need them to live. We need them to get on. We need them to get working. We need them to make money. And I understand the anger. I really do. People are earning a good wage, but they don't have a nice lifestyle anymore. If you were earning 60 grand going back 10 years ago, you had a nice lifestyle. You earn 60 grand now, it's gone because the cost of living is so high. And I understand how frustrating that is. But there has to be a better way. There has to be another way of doing it. Because you have to think morally, is it right? I mentioned Paul Murphy, for example. What would happen if those people went up and only his wife and his child was there and he's not even there, he's off at some engagement? They'd be terrified in the house. How if that was your wife and child? It's not their fault Paul Murphy's a politician and makes decisions you don't particularly like.
Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
All right, look at some of the comments coming in. Don Burke says on Facebook, no, it's not acceptable, especially if they have children. Why put the family at fear for their safety? Fiona McGonigal says on Facebook, Murphy probably organised the protest himself and then tipped the media off. He's many things, but I don't think he did that. Mark McLaughlin says, weird looking bunch. Looks set up, if you ask me. Lee McGrath says, the knock on our doors ask us to basically give them a jib promising, I'm assuming a vote, certain things. So why should we not be allowed to call them out on their lack of performance? Never thought of that aspect yet. They do knock on your doors for looking for your vote. Karen says, I'm a new first-time mother, and if that happened to me, I would be absolutely terrified. These protesters have no consideration whatsoever. Let me go to Bernie. Bernie, you're in Ireland's Classic Hits Radio. How you doing, Bernie? Oh, Bernie, sorry. Sorry, Bernie, go ahead.
Okay, hi, Niall. I feel that even though I hate to say it, I think it's wrong to do that because, it's their job at the end of the day. I know it's angry. Like, we don't stand at a surgeon's door or a consultant's door if they get something wrong and somebody dies and needs somebody without a breadwinner. Mm-hmm. We have to get over that. We have to move on. We don't stand at their door and protest. Or do we stand at the protest at the door of the guy who's held you up in traffic with the lights and the road works for an hour? And they're equally, to me, frustrating. Because we don't know what goes on behind people's closed doors. He could have a very ill parent or a sibling or a wife.
The other doors.
Sorry, John?
I appreciate that.
I said, what about all the doors and the families around the country that are going through trauma, that can't get their child assessed by child and mental health services, autistic children, spina bifida, ophthalmology, the list goes on and on and on.
I appreciate that, John, but you don't stand at the surgeon's door. You're not standing at the eye surgeon's door. You're not standing at the mental health door.
It's not the surgeon's fault that there's a backlog. The whole system, is destroyed. And that's down to the part. We've a guy called the Minister for Health, and we've another guy called the Minister for Justice. We've got a housing minister, and they're failing abysmally. That's why people are pissed off.
I appreciate that, and I completely understand what you're saying. However, no matter how frustrating it is not to do something about it, we have to do it with ourselves as a group, not go to their doors. As a public, we are the public. We're dissatisfied with the service. Therefore, we should protest in our large numbers wherever we can, not their doors, though. Like if Niall pisses you off tonight, are you going to go up to his door and stand outside his door?
Well, I
my
was
God,
already I was already asked, no, since you put that question to me, right? This week, now I'll actually buy another broadcaster here in Cork, right? PJ Coogan, to know they were on about this kind of stuff as well, would I protest outside his door? He was just wondering. And I said no, for the simple reason, you are a radio presenter like yourself, Niall. Mm-hmm. You are not a legislator.
But it doesn't make. But hang on, with the greatest respect, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but me or PJ Coogan or Neil Prenderville or whoever it is on the radio or Pat Kenny, we all have the ability to make change because we influence. But the very fact that we're talking about things, it influences people. So, for example, I know they protested outside Pat Kenny's home because Pat Kenny would have been very pro-vaccine at the time of COVID-19, and some of the anti-vax people protested outside his house. And that was wrong. Now, I didn't agree with everything Pat Kenny said on the air. Actually, I didn't agree with a lot of what he said. But I still wouldn't condone people protesting outside his house.
Yeah, but you see, would you blame people? Because, I mean, that's going back to the vaccine again. Anyone who questioned that, I would dare, my God, like there was one clown in Cork many years ago, company, I'm not even going to mention because he's in Muppet. But he went along and said that all of us that don't take the vaccine should be exercised out of society. He said we should be banned, we shouldn't be allowed in anywhere of the whole lot. I mean, this guy was chased through the streets of Cork after, and well done to the people who did it.
Okay. We'll stay there just for a second. Let me just bring Derry Ann in as well. Stay there, Bernie. Derry Ann, you're in Ireland's Classic Hits Radio. How you doing, Derry Ann?
Yeah, good. As you remember, Niall, I was an ardent protester during the water.
You were?
Yeah, and stood in the road, stood everywhere. And one of the memories I have is of they were trying to close or shorten the hours and close some of the libraries around North County. And I was out doing a very peaceful protest with families. We had kind of a family day outside this library. And the next thing, this big black car pulls up, dark windows. Nobody noticed us. So I had a look and I thought, what the? Out got two guys, dark suits, dark shades, earphones, and they came in into the library, and they were security guys who were brought in by the council to watch us all. Now, come on. I mean, what money was spent then?
It's a bit FBI-ish, isn't it? You know what I mean? To be honest with you, it sounds like the Men in Black. But Derry, getting back to what I said, John protests regularly outside politicians' homes. I know it's not illegal, and in fairness to John, he's a peaceful protester. I know he is, but a lot of these people are not peaceful, and when I say not peaceful, they're agitated.
I 100% agree with that, because I witnessed guys outside a hotel in North County one time protesting. I think Enda Kenny was pulling up at the time, and I was taking pictures for the local paper. But what the guys that were protesting didn't realise was they had a poster of a swastika. Now, I managed to get a picture of it, didn't do anything with it, mind you, saving me life. But anyway, and they all had their faces covered. Now, you know, I admire John, and I say fair dues to John. And John, I want to say something to you. I don't know what's happened in Classic Hits recently, but in the last few days, I have never heard you so clear on the radio. Whatever has happened with the studio or whatever, doesn't matter. It's great to hear you very clearly.
Maybe he got a new phone. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. But what I would say to John, everything you're saying is so true. But I think we need to, and I think the Cork people are more passionate than us Dubs. I definitely do think we're kind of living, you know, we think we're living the dream. And whereas if you're in Cork, you're on the ground, you're in a community. And I think, John, we should start maybe focusing on bringing back these big, massive protests.
I wouldn't. By the way, Derry Ann, I'm not disagreeing with you, and I think the Irish people have lost their way when it comes to standing up for their rights. And there is a way of protesting and organising mass protests to make change. I don't disagree with that. I think you and John are right. People should be more active when it comes to that. But I still don't agree with them. I said, hang on, I've 2 minutes and I have to go to Martin as well. Just very quickly, Derry Ann, stay there for a second. Martin, you're in Ireland's Classics. Sorry, Derry Ann, go ahead. You don't think you should what?
I was going to say, I wouldn't agree with standing outside somebody's home. And Martin,
sorry, go ahead, Martin. Go on, 2 minutes, Martin.
Good evening, all. A lot of what I would have said has been covered. Okay. Now, I am fundamentally a free speech, freedom of expression. I'm a fundamentalist on that. Whichever side you're on, if it's speech and expression, you have the right to do that, so long as there's nothing illegal taking place. Now, on the idea that people turning up at a politician's house to protest, if it's being done legally and the law is not broken, I get what you're saying, Niall. But what about the point that our children are being indoctrinated in school to take all kinds of vile crap home with them into their home? And people like Paul Murphy are out there leading the march on this. So I have,
I understand. No, well, hang on. I understand the point you're making, and I did say already in relation to Paul Murphy, I'm not a fan. Mind you, I'm not a fan of most politicians. But in saying that, there's still a way of doing things, Martin. And you know, what I'm thinking of is, as much as I don't like his politics, you know, if he wasn't there, if he was out on an engagement, his wife and his young baby was there. That's not right, Martin.
No, hang on now. The point I'm making is that the children in our schools are being indoctrinated and
I know.
with all kinds of crap. And whether the father is there when the child...
Well, that depends on your point of view on it, yes, but go on.
It's omnipresent, okay? So my point on this is, I absolutely agree with John, and up the Rebel County, and I'm a dyed-in-the-wool...
Yeah, but would you do it, Martin? Would you stand outside a politician's home?
There was a time when I wouldn't have, but with the way things are going in this country, yes, now I'm getting very close with it. I've been on many protests for many reasons, anti-abortion, water charges, anti-lockdown, you name it. I've always behaved legally. When it comes to seeing...
And Martin, you're a sensible man, Martin. I've spoken to you many times. I'm sure you do behave legally. But the problem is when, 30 or 40 people get together, particularly with the picture I seen on Monday night, they're all wearing, scarves across their faces, and they start chanting all sorts of obscenities. Then somebody gets a bit frustrated, and before you know it, someone's put a brick through a window.
I am not...
That hasn't happened.
It does happen, John. I'm not saying it did happen. It does.
You tell me so. What politician got a brick through the window?
I'm not saying anybody got a brick through the window. I'm saying before you know it, that sort of thing can happen.
But it hasn't happened. And
if it becomes common, John, if it becomes commonplace, I'm saying.
But there's laws there to deal with that. I mean, there's public order, offences against the Person Act. I mean, all covers all that. Like.
Yes, hang on. Let me just bring Bernie in, because I've 30 seconds. Bernie, you've heard what Martin says. He doesn't agree with Paul Murphy's policies, and Paul Murphy's promoting a policy that he's not happy about, and he feels that will be his right as long as he does it peacefully.
No, I know I hate myself for saying this, but we need to go together as a band up together as a whole, all of the people. We're sitting down too long now. The water thing was a fantastic thing. We need to get up off our houses and start making noise and get out on the streets, get out in the Phoenix Park and take it over if we have to. I don't agree with anything that they're bringing into us at the moment. Our children are being destroyed. Our health centre is being destroyed. Healthcare has gone out the window. We need to stand together now more than ever as a nation. We're not taking that anymore.
Okay, listen, Terry-Ann, John, Bernie, Martin, I'm sorry for cutting everybody short. I could take this out for 3 or 4 hours, but unfortunately I don't have the time. Thank you very much to all of you. I get the general gist. People are not happy. I know that. All I'm saying is if you are going to protest, please have a level of consideration.
Real people, real opinions.
Real Talk Radio. The multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.
Ireland's classic hits.